Chapter 3. The Wicked Omen. The first tap house I found was called the Wicked Omen, its name carved into a warped wooden sign that hung crooked above the entryway. The letters had been carved too deep, and rot had gathered in the grooves, making the sign look like it was bleeding black. The building itself was barely standing. Its roof sagged, and faint green light seeped through cracks in the walls, likely from the same fungus that seemed to infest every corner of this charming city. Inside, the air was thick with herd haze, a sweet-smelling smoke that dulled the edges of thought and gave the world a faint shimmer. The stench of spilled booze, unwashed bodies, and rot lingered underneath it, fighting for dominance. The patrons, all ash elves of course, sat hunched over their drinks, their faces grim and hollow. A few had mushrooms sprouting from their clothes, their glow flickering as the patrons moved to spit a curse or two at each other. I limped to the bar and leaned heavily on the counter, setting the heavy box I'd been carrying since Valeswood next to me. The skittering inside grew louder for a moment before settling. The barkeep, a grizzled Hansier with a missing ear and a permanent scowl, didn't even bother hiding his suspicion as he eyed me. "Swill," I rasped, sliding a coin across the counter. He grunted, grabbed a cup from somewhere under the bar, and filled it with that foul-smelling liquid I knew all too well. I downed it in one go, the burn in my throat doing nothing to dull the ache in my knees or back. "Another," I said. The barkeep poured again, this time watching me more closely. We repeated this little ritual a few more times, until the poison slowly began to dull the worst of my pain. "Don't see your kind here often," the barkeep said after the 5th or 6th cup of swill, his voice like soggy gravel. "What kind is that?" I asked, raising the 6th or 7th cup to my lips. "Corpse elf." "Ah, you noticed, did you?" I said, gesturing to the hideous scars on my face. "Not the tidiest mug you've seen, I take it." "What happened to you?" "Same as any other corpse elf. Sadhara happened." "Leshena pity you," he muttered, a ceremonial scrap of compassion tossed into the void. "Ah, it's not so bad," I said. "I piss blood most days, and my teeth slice open my tongue every time I try to chew food. Also, walking is torture. Breathing hurts, and when I lie down to sleep, my blood feels like it's on fire. Nothing to moan about, really." The barkeep glanced around the room, catching the wary gazes of a few patrons. "You're making the others nervous." "They'll get used to it. Pour me another swill, Zero." He did. Decent guy, I thought. "I'm looking for someone," I said, leaning in. "A Sayash. Name's Glotha. Apparently she runs some kind of operation around these parts. Heard of her?" The barkeep stiffened, his hand tightening around the tankard he was cleaning. "Don't know her," he said, turning away. Liar. Maybe even a Vex-Lankar worshipper. Someone who made a habit of thinking lying was a virtue. Probably not, though. This sorry sod was most likely just scared. I didn't move, just slid another coin onto the counter. The clink of metal on wood echoed in the smoky room. "If you stop lying to me, I'll make it worth your while." "You'd be smart not poking around in this, corpse elf," he said without turning back. "Been a lot of trouble with the Sayash you're asking for lately. Big trouble. Everyone who gets close to her ends up on the Imperial's lists, and if you're smart, you do well not to risk that." "Let's say I'm not smart," I said, my voice flat. "Let's say I'm a stupid fuck with a death wish. Where do I find her?" He turned back slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Why do you care about Glotha?" "Maybe I'm smitten with her," I said with a shrug. "Maybe I got a lovely bouquet of herd roses I want to give her." The barkeep studied me for a long moment, then sighed heavily and leaned in. "Old tenement on Verothy Street, near the eastern edge of the gallows. If she's not there, someone will know where she is. But be warned, the Imperials are watching her. I don't know what plans you have, but if you're thinking of joining her crew, you might as well fetch a gravedigger and order yourself a leash right away. It's only a matter of time before her little project goes up in smoke." "Appreciate it." I slid another coin across the counter for good measure, and stood, my bones groaning in protest as I picked up the skittering box and strapped it back over my shoulders. Thanks to the swill, however, it didn't hurt as bad as before. The barkeep called after me as I made my way to the door. "Word of advice, Corpse Elf. Don't trust her. She's got blood on her hands, and she's not afraid to spill more." I didn't answer, just pulled my hat lower and stepped out into the ash-filled city.